So we're doing a warrior constructed deck tonight. And you get rid of the broadcasting module. So what I did is I put together a. Let me change one thing. Take this out of full screen. Alright, well for some reason it resized, so my guess is you guys are not going to see, well, you're seeing enough of it. Alright, so I started to put together the core of a warrior rank deck, but I also I read through everybody's emails that sent me suggestions for the warrior deck. I appreciate it. So what I did is I added, this is Cockatrice. Some of you heard us talk about Cockatrice before. This is an emulator that you could play before the game came out. You guys could still play this now if you wanted to. You just go to Good Bobby Calamari and download it. But what I did is I added a lot of the cards, pretty much all the warrior cards, as well as the cards that people suggested we add to the deck. So we'll probably use this to work through the cards and figure out how to fill our deck out. So the plan for tonight is to spend 15-20 minutes, maybe a bit more, a bit less, putting this warrior deck together, and then we will take it for a spin in the ranked mode. For those you haven't seen the ranked mode yet, at least on this stream, we've only played arena, so we're going to try to give that a run tonight. We decided to pick warrior. I decided to pick warrior because it's not an often played class, and also because we did play in arena a couple times, and I thought it actually had more promise than I was expecting, frankly, so I wanted to give it a try. So the idea behind this deck is to focus primarily on charge minions and use them to make our damage, to be a really highly aggressive deck. I think we have really three potential challenges with that approach. The first is taunt. Obviously, if they have taunt minions on the board, that really slows down the deck. I think the best way to get around that are cards, oops, I just took it away, like Ironbeak Owl, which allow you to silence a minion when they come into play. So this will, if we have a taunt minion on the board that we don't want to deal with, we can silence the taunt away, and then we can bypass it. So that, I think that's the primary way that we can deal with taunt. The second challenge is going to be board control. I think we need to make sure we have cards in play that will allow us to have some board control. So these are things like Whirlwind, Cleave, Slam, direct damage abilities, Execute, that will let us do damage to minions, Shield Slam, do damage to minions and remove them from the board. The ultimate board clear for warriors is Brawl. So this is another reason why that card is already in the deck. Let's see, I said three challenges, and of course now I'm struggling to remember the third challenge. Let's see, Taunt, board control, and now I can't remember. Alright, so, oh, card advantage. I do think we may have an issue with card advantage, and we may have an issue with card advantage simply because if we're playing charge minions, they tend to, you play the card and usually it gets killed off pretty quickly. Also, they tend not to have a ton of health, so the opponent's probably going to be able to make some pretty good trades. The other issue we'll have is because they don't have a lot of health, they can be cleared by AoE spells, which can also get us in the card disadvantage. I think there's things we can do to alleviate that. Obviously, there's always draw power, which will... hey, Bronius. I think you will see Leroy having a role in this deck. We'll talk about that. So I think the way we can get around card advantage is obviously there's draw power, which we can talk about, probably the best draw power choices for the deck. And also, I think the other thing are things like Youthful Brewmaster, which allows you to bounce a card and replay it. People don't necessarily think about that as draw power, but you're getting to use the same card twice. So it's basically like that you drew the same card twice. So, I think that's definitely another way to eliminate a card disadvantage issue. Let's see. Sorry. So that's kind of my thought. So going for charge, we need to deal with taunt, we need to deal with card disadvantage, and we also need to deal with being able to assert some board control, particularly in the mid game if we get behind on minions. So here's what I've put into the deck so far. We have Execute, destroy a damaged minion. This is really, even though it's a 1 mana drop, it's really more of a late game ability in my mind, or mid game ability, where we need to clear a big minion, so we run a small minion to it and destroy it with this spell. Shield Slam, deal 1 damage to a minion for each armor you have. Again, it's single minion removal. Whirlwind, deal 1 damage to all minions. Now notice it's all minions. That includes our minions. We may or may not include this one in. If we decide to go with some enrage minions, then we can trigger their enrage this way, or like the Gurabashi Berserker, his pseudo enrage you can trigger this way. So enrage, I keep saying enrage for so you can, that might be another possibility. Whirlwind. Cleave is an AoE clear. Slam is a direct damage plus draw. Iron Beak Owl is in for the silences. Shield Block is armor and draw power as well. Evening Revenix. Corcoran Elite is probably the best for its mana. I think it's one of the best charge minions in the game. Sinjin, I'm not even going to explain why Sinjin's in this deck, because he's going to be in every deck I play. Brawl, we've already talked about. Sunwalker, after Sinjin, is the best taunt minion in the game. And Gorehowl is, I think, a good weapon. We may take it out at some point. We may take it out even before we start the matches, because of its 7 mana cost, it's pretty extreme. But it's a great minion clear, because basically you can keep killing minions with it constantly, although your hero is going to take damage without losing durability. And it's 7 damage. I mean, look, it would be decent as a spell. If you had a spell that said use 7 mana and do 7 damage, it would be a great spell. It would be a decent spell at least. Pyroblast for mages is use 8 mana and you get 10 damage. So it's basically what it is. It's kind of a direct damage spell with some abilities. Revenix, I got my key from being a moderator on the Hearthstone.com forums. So that's the idea of the deck so far. So let's go back into Cockatrice. Now, you can see we have 77 cards in this deck right now. And each of these is only in the deck once. That means there's 77 cards here to consider. I don't think we'll necessarily have to go through all of them, but so given where we're at, I think the first place to start is to talk about charge minions. So we have Corcoran Elite already in, but that's the only charge minion we have. I think, let me see, if you can just put in, can you just put in charge? Yeah, actually you can. Alright, so we can work through the charge minions this way. There's an ability for charge. I think we hold off on putting that one in for now until we see how many non-charge minions we have. One quick note, you notice if you have 2 of a card already in the deck, then it locks it, so you actually can't use anymore. So it's pretty interesting. Warsong Commander, again, I think we wait and figure out if we have a bunch of non-charge minions, and this can become an excellent card. But for now, let's see where we end up minion-wise. So here's the other charge minions. I think South Sea Deckhand would possibly make sense if we end up with a weapon. Stone Tusk Boar and Bluegill Warrior are your standard, and Wolf Rider for that matter. And these first 3 are really kind of your standard charge minions. They're pretty much right on the mana curve. Arcane Golem, I'm not a huge fan of. Old Murk-Eye we really can't use unless we go with a Murloc deck, which we're not doing. Leroy Jenkins, I think we should definitely talk about. It's a 4 mana, 6 charge. He does summon 2 1/1 welts for your opponent, but he's definitely a card to consider. Stormwind Knight, it's an interesting charge. It's basically, unlike the other charge cards that usually have more attack than health, he's actually got more health than attack. And the reason that becomes useful is he's basically a trade minion. So you cast him, they have some, minion on the board who's got 2 health. You run him into that minion for 2 health, and now you're left with a 2/3 for the next hand. So he's not too bad. I don't know if you can hear my cat; she's meowing like crazy. Argent Commander is probably one of the best charge minions in the game. Probably second only to Leroy and Hellscream, honestly. Speaking of which, we don't actually have. Oops, let's see. Well, there's the cat. Told you she was coming. We don't actually have Hellscream crafted yet. I'm going to go ahead and craft him. I just wanted to let you guys see the crafting experience. We have plenty of Arcane Dust, so we're going to go ahead and craft him. There we go. So now we have Hellscream in the deck. So if we go back to our charge minions, I think we need to be careful because we're getting pretty mana heavy at this point. But I don't know how we make a warrior charge deck without the legendary warrior who has charge. So I think he goes in the deck. And then I do think Leroy Jenkins should probably go on the deck. You know, for 4 mana, he's got 6 attack. You look at the other 4 mana charge drops, and none of them are close. So I think. Sorry, my cat's making the chair move. I think he definitely he should go in, especially at a 4 mana drop. We need some lower mana costs. So we're up to 24 cards. Obviously, we may drop some things. At this point, you know, we have 2, 3, 4 charge minions. Yeah, Whirlwind would be good. You're right, because it clears his whelp, so it doesn't mean anything at that point. So we have 4 charge minions. I'm thinking this deck to really do well, probably need something around 8 charge minions, maybe even 10, because I really want that to be the fundamental focus of the deck. So let's see. I think Argent Commander should go in. Again, we're got to watch our mana curve here. We're getting pretty steep, especially on the minion side. So we probably need some form of lower mana minion charge. I think, you know, the one thing we don't have in this deck right now is like a Shield Bearer or any kind of really early minion, something like a 1-drop or 2-drop. I think we could go with Fairy Dragon would be an excellent choice. The Fairy Dragon's really grown on me now that we've played it quite a bit. So we could go Fairy Dragon, and for those of you who haven't seen Fairy Dragon, I'll bring it up. This is Fairy Dragon. It's a 2 for 3/2, but it can't be targeted by spells or hero power, so you can only kill it with another minion. Another good low alternative might be a Shield Bearer. He doesn't fit in our deck necessarily for charge or early aggression, but at 0/4 and a taunt, he's basically going to stop us from being attacked for probably 2 turns, or at least 1 for sure. So Shield Bearer might be another option. If we go back to the charge minions, you know, I think you know, we talk about the Bluegill Warrior, the Wolf Rider. So what's your thoughts about where to go with the low end charge minions? Do you think we're better off going with like a Fairy Dragon or Shield Bearer or something, or even go like an Elven Archer who gives us some damage, but so Elven Archer deals 1 damage and it's a 1/1 for 1. Elven Archer is an excellent card. There's the 2 damage version of it, which is Storm Pike Commando, but he's a 5-drop, so we really need to stay more in the lower end of cards. So what's your guys' thoughts? I want y'all to help out with putting this deck together. I've been talking a lot so far. Yeah, that is true about being the magic of the arena. I definitely would not have grown to like Fairy Dragon if we had not played Arena so much, that's for sure. And I do think Fairy Dragon and Constructed is maybe not as strong, but Fairy Dragon in Arena I think is an amazing card. In fact, I will probably start taking Fairy Dragon regularly in the Arena at this point. Yeah, I do. I think I agree. I think the 5-drop is too much. Let's see. Let's go through Cockatrice real quick and see what other minions. You know, Abusive Sergeant may not be a bad option. It does fit in with the. Can you guys see that? See the text on that card? Probably not too well. It does fit in with the theme of being aggressive early. Acolyte of Pain gives us some draw power. Let's see what else is a low drop. Bloodsail Raider. This really only works if we go with a weapon. Captain Greenskin, I also put in here for possible draw power, but we'll talk about him when we get to draw power cards. Let's see. Dark Iron's probably a bit high. Now, the other option we could go with too. So, yeah, I agree. I think the Wolf Rider is probably a good choice. Some other things we could do for early game presence is we could go Novice Engineer, which is a 1/2, but the battle cry lets us draw a card. So it offers pretty good board presence with a draw power ability. The flip side of a Novice Engineer is a Loot Hoarder, which I can't spell hoarder, which is the same thing. It's flipped to a 2/1 and it's a Death Rattle. Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake, you know, we're probably, if we're going to be playing, well, we don't have a lot of draw power yet. If we're going to play Twilight Drake, yeah, we're going to probably be putting cards down pretty quickly to be aggressive. So I don't know that Twilight Drake is the way to go. I'm actually, the more we talk through this, I'm kind of tending towards maybe 2 Wolf Riders and maybe 2 Novice Engineers. Now, obviously, we only have 1 spot left, but we'll take some stuff out as we go along. And, you know, maybe a Shield Bearer. Maybe just 1 Shield Bearer or 2 to kind of stall the game out early. If we're looking through, you know, kind of what cards can we consider giving up at this point, we're pretty minion heavy. And we have 1 weapon. I want to talk about that Gorehowl in a second, but, you know, we're pretty minion heavy. We have a little bit of draw power with Novice Engineer and Shield, whatever the shield thing is. Shield Armor? Shield Block, that's what it's called. So we are pretty minion heavy. We do have some good early clear. What do you guys... So I do think the Novice Engineers are the way to go, and the Wolf Riders. Booty Bay Bodyguard is a taunt minion, right? Does not have charge. Yeah. Booty Bay is taunt. Booty Bay is fine, and in fact, we've used it quite a bit in Arena, but for your mana cost, Sinjin is really better, and I think Argent Commander is better too. So yeah, I think Blood Mage. Yeah, I had Blood Mage, so I know you had Blood Mage in your deck. You know, Blood Mage Thalnos isn't bad. He's, you know, obviously he's a 2 for 1/1. He gives you 1 spell power, which, you know, 1 spell power would help, like our Whirlwind, our Cleave, our Slam. We do have some direct damage abilities. His does have a Death Rattle, so he does give you 1 card. I'm actually don't mind playing him. We probably would take out 1 Novice Engineer for Blood Mage instead. Because I don't think we need 2 Novice Engineers and Blood Mage. But yeah, you know, he does fit our deck a little bit. Although he is a 1/1, I wish he was a 2/1. So we are giving up a little bit, and I don't know that we'll leverage spell power, but we might. You know, if we play him early, and, you know, Whirlwind or something, he would kill himself. Actually, you know what? Let's think about that. That's not a bad plan. So let's assume that they had 2 or 3, you know, 1 health minions on the board. We could play Blood Mage Thalanos. We could Whirlwind, and with the spell power, we would clear the board and draw a card for 3 mana. It's not bad. Yeah, Wind Fury Harpy is on my list. We'll talk about that one in a second. I think Wind Fury Harpy... So there's kind of a couple ways that I think we could approach this deck. We could go with charge minions, or we could go with good minions and give them charge. So, right, things like Defender of Argus, who's also on the list, as well as Sun Fury Protector, potentially, obviously Warsong Commander. You know, all of those have good abilities. I'm tending towards, I kind of want to, at least at first, I kind of want this deck to be sort of pure in concept, where we really just go for charge, draw power, clear taunt, and keep it kind of focused. We'll see how it goes. We may end up turning it. Another Sunwalker is not a bad idea. The only reason that I would hesitate to do that is we already have an 8-drop and a bunch of 4-drops. So I don't know that we'll have the mana to cast 2 Sunwalkers, but I think that's definitely a possibility. So let's talk real quick about weapons. So I think Gorehowl is an excellent weapon. Let me see if I can get, let's see, does it say? No, it doesn't. I wish like it said weapon or something on the card so you could search by it. You can search by equipment in the Hearthstone database, I think, but not in this database. So, so I think, you know, let's talk about weapons. Again, with this deck where we are trying to be aggressive, I don't think it would necessarily hurt to have a couple weapons in the deck. Obviously, that turns our hero into another minion, basically. So our options here really for weapons are, let's see, Arcanite Reaper is probably, you know what, oh, here it is, okay. So Cockatree sorts it by equipment, which is nice. So you have Arcanite Reaper, which is a 5/2, Fiery War Axe, which is a 3/2, and Gorehowl, which is the big weapon. Given kind of our mana curve, if we're gonna include any weapons in, I would probably keep Gorehowl and maybe put in 2 Fiery War Axes, because you're doing 6 damage here. Arcanite Reaper is 10, but if you look at so let's think about this. For 2 mana, you get to do 6 damage. For 5 mana, you get to do 10 damage. So the mana to damage ratio is better actually on the Fiery War Axe than it is on Arcanite Reaper. So I think it's a better weapon. What does suggest the card mean? Okay, so if we didn't want to figure out the rest of our decks, we could just put suggest a card, and it would look at our mana. So like, for example, here, let's see, is it gonna there it goes. So it looks at it says we need more minions. So and you notice that it's giving us some low mana. We already talked about Fairy Dragon. Young Dragonhawk's actually pretty good too. Oh, you know how it works. Well, here's what it does. Here's what it's telling us. And actually, I don't think these are bad suggestions. One thing you can do cool too, which we may do at some point, is kind of a maybe for something one night we might actually just let the computer make a deck completely for us, which you can do, and then play that deck as well. That's something else I've thought about for something different. Okay, so what do you guys think about weapons? Do you think we should have some weapons? Maybe someone else suggested a Rothy Weaponsmith, which I think is the one that gives you a 2/2. Yeah, so when it battle cries, it equips a 2/2 weapon. I don't think that's necessarily a bad option either. You get some card advantage there because you're basically getting 2 cards for the price of 1. So what do you guys think about weapons? Do you think we should have some? A couple Fiery War Axes, Arcanite Reaper, and a Gorehowl. It does, Pittsburgh, but hopefully if we get, and we need to talk about if we have enough silence in this deck, if we can silence through the taunt minions, then we can just go after the hero directly, and the hero never comes back with retaliation damage. And remember, we'll be using our hero ability, hopefully some, so we'll have armor. So even if we take some damage, that's what the armor's there for, is to absorb it, hopefully. 2 Fiery War Axes instead of the Gorehowl. Yeah, I'm tending away from the Gorehowl. I will say if we decide to make a weapon-centric deck at some point with Warrior, I think I'd put Gorehowl in it. But maybe not to start. So we could do an Arathi Weaponsmith, which gives us a weapon and a 4 mana minion. It's a possibility. Think about Fiery War Axe. So the other thing about Fiery War Axe is we're talking about that we need kind of a 2 mana minion. Well, this basically gives us 4 2 mana minions. Unfortunately, it's our hero, of course, but you know, it is what it is. We get something for it. It's basically like having a minion. So I think I'd be okay with that. What do you guys think? Let's see. Yeah. So, let's talk about we talked about what our challenges were going to be. The first is board control. I think we actually will be okay with clearing the board. We have 2 brawls. We have a bunch of low damage if we need it. We have some taunt for protection. We only have 3 taunt minions. We could consider maybe adding a shield bearer in and dropping something else. We are a little weak on draw power. We have 1 novice engineer, a blood mage Thalanos. We also have shield block. So we have shield block as well. Now the other, what was the card that I was thinking about adding? Let's see. I'm sure I'll remember it when I see it. Is it Inner Rage? No. Heroic Strike? No. Rampage? No. I'm looking for the one that lets you draw as many. Battle Rage. Yeah. So Battle Rage might not be bad as well. It lets you draw a card for each damaged minion on the battlefield. I think that could be very good, especially when they start attacking into our taunt minions, or we attack with our charge minions. So Battle Rage is not a bad idea. We could add... Well, I think Battle Rage wouldn't be a bad idea. The shield armor, use up armor you gained for the attack. Shield Slam, no. Shield Slam just basic... wait, you're talking about Shield Slam. Do we have Shield Slam in the deck? I thought we did. Maybe we don't. Oh, no, we do. Why am I not seeing it? Oh, it's a 1-drop, that's why. No, it doesn't use up the armor. So if you have 5 armor, it does 5 damage, but you still have 5 armor. Yeah, you're right. Battle Rage would be good for an Enraged deck. We could take a bunch of Enraged minions, hit Whirlwind, and then draw a ton of cards. I think you're right. I think it would have a better synergy in a different deck. So we may have draw power issues. Oh, I know the one thing we did not talk about. Something I would like to see in the deck is 2 Youthful Brewmasters. I think we need to, if we can bounce our charge minions and recast them, that's a form of card advantage. So I would like to find a way to put 2 Youthful Brewmasters in. I think I would also like to have at least 1 Spellbreaker in for another Silence, in addition to the 2 Ironbeak Owls. The other possibility... Oh, that's not what I wanted. The Black Knight. So this is a legendary card. When it comes onto play, it destroys a minion with Taunt, which could be very good for our deck. We'd have to craft it. But it's a 6-drop, so you know it's getting pretty high up there. But you think about in mid game, if that Druid drops like an Ironbark Protector, that 8/8 with Taunt, or someone's got a Lord of the Arena out there, a 6/5 with Taunt, this card could be really good. Yeah, Alexstrasza is not bad, and for us, Alexstrasza could end up being a heal. Because we may get below 15 health because we'll be taking a good bit of damage in this deck, I suspect. But yeah, so I think what we need to consider adding at this point is either the Black Knight or a couple Youthful Brewmasters, which gives us a 2-drop minion, or again, a Spellbreaker. So, yeah, that's true. The Youthful Brewmaster, we could bounce the Ironbeak and recast it. So, you know, maybe we don't need the Spellbreaker then. If we were going to add 2 Youthful Brewmasters, what would you guys take out of this deck? Yep, that's what I was just asking, Pittsburgh. I want your guys' input on that. See, Inner Rage instead of Whirlwind. Yeah, Inner Rage isn't, it's a 0-drop, it's good. And we could use it to also enrage, like, our Corcoran Elite or Leroy Jenkins, even. We make him an 8/1 instead of a 6/2. We could, yeah, I could see maybe trading 1 Whirlwind for 1 Inner Rage. Getting rid of a Shield Slam, that's not a bad idea. Because Shield Slam is dependent on us having armor. So it's possible we don't have armor. I'll tell you the other thing that would be good about Inner Rage, honestly, is it would combo into our Execute. So we could use it as a 1-mana minion kill, basically, with Execute. Or we could use it to help Enrage. So I don't think that's essentially bad as well. We also have Cleave for early clear, so don't forget about Cleave. Usually at turn 2, they're not going to have more than 2 minions, hopefully. And usually they're pretty low health. So, you know, the more I'm talking to this, you know, Whirlwind, I think, is actually more of a late game clear, honestly, if we really got overwhelmed by, like, a Murloc deck or a token deck with a bunch of 1 health. So, maybe we take Whirlwind out. I'm kind of digging Inner Rage, actually, now that I think about it with Execute. Problem is that a 0-drop, it's going to drive our card disadvantage pretty quickly. Let's see, what else? Brewmasters with Novice and maybe 1 Brawler. Well, I don't want to take the Novice out because we could also, for example, with the Brewmasters, we could bounce a Novice Engineer, which gives us more draw power. So, I don't know that I want to do that either. 1 Brewmaster for 1 Novice. It's not a bad idea. Really would like to get 2 Brewmasters in. So maybe what we do... So let's set aside the Brewmasters for a second. What do you guys think about taking Whirlwind out and putting in Inner Rage? Or maybe take 1 Whirlwind out and put in 1 Inner Rage? Yeah, 1 Brawl. You know, I think the more... So here's the thing about Brawl. You're right. We're probably not going to use... You're probably not going to use Brawl more than once a game. The reason you put 2 in the deck, though, is to make sure you get it when you need it. Um, so, but I think let's take one brawl out, actually. So we take one brawl out. I like changing one whirlwind for one inner rage, so let's do that. And then now we have one spot for a brewmaster. The other option, what's the Cruel Taskmaster? Is that actually, you know what? I didn't talk about Cruel Taskmaster. It's funny, I wasn't trying to pull him up, but I did. Here's a 2-drop minion that deals 1 damage, so it gives us some minion clear, but it also gives it 2 attacks, so it's got a dual purpose. It gives us some board clear, but it also potentially allows us to beef up one of our own minions. So it's not a bad card to consider. In fact, I would probably consider Blood Mage Thalanos over it, perhaps, for this deck, but we'll keep that in the back of our mind for later. So the only thing left really is, do we want to put in another Youthful Brewmaster, and what do we take out? I think our mana curve is going to look pretty decent with this deck. We're a little light on the heavy end. You know, maybe we might run into some issues with the late game. But again, this is not a late game mechanic. Yeah, I think, you know, they're definitely, based on the way the warrior cards work, there's definitely an enraged deck out there you can make with warrior cards, no doubt about it. I think that might be an interesting warrior deck to make at some point. This one I really want to theme it around charge and whatnot. Again, I think we may have trouble late game, but this deck is really designed hopefully not to get to late game too often, or be in a pretty dominant position when you do. You know, the one thing, so we didn't talk about if we actually want to use the spell charge or Warsong Commander. The only minions that don't have charge in our deck are our taunt minions. So, well, and Novice Engineer and our utility minion. So I don't think we need either one of those, frankly. Alright guys, so real quick then. So, yes or no, do we want to put another Youthful Brewmaster in, and what do we change out for it? And then we'll get going. Yeah, we definitely don't need charge spell, I agree. One shield slam. Yeah, I think that's not a bad choice. Yeah, I agree, because I think we already talked about that, you potentially, you may not have armor to use, so, and I do really think the Youthful Brewmaster utility is going to be nice. I mean, look, even in the mid game, we could, you know, cast Youthful Brewmaster to kick back an Ironbeak Owl and recast it for the Silence, and that's, you know, 4 mana. The other good thing about Youthful Brewmaster, if our charge minion survives, like if this Corcoran Elite doesn't get killed, we can cast the Brewmaster, bounce it back to our hand, and recast the Corcoran for another. Actually, we attack with the Corcoran, cast the Youthful Brewmaster, and then attack with the Corcoran again. We end up doing 8 damage for 6 mana. It's not too bad. Alright, so I think we're going to call this done. What do you guys think of the deck? You think we'll do alright? We can always change it. True. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be fun. And again, this is, well, it's really about trying to figure it out and go from there. So let's open a pack real quick, since we usually open a pack before or between every game. Now, it'd be funny is if we end up getting one of the minions I just crafted, but it's all right. Acolyte of Pain is a card we didn't talk about yet. Again, I think there is a play an unranked first. Real quick in the chat, would you rather play an unranked or a ranked first match? We could play Trixie first. Yeah, so Acolyte of Pain, Worgen Infiltrator. I think we actually can make a charge slash stealth deck because in some